Activity theory, Russian, is an umbrella term for a line of eclectic social sciences theories and research with its roots in the Soviet psychological activity theory pioneered by Lev Vygotsky, Alexei Leontev and Sergei Rubinstein. These scholars sought to understand human activities as systemic and socially situated phenomena and to go beyond paradigms of reflexology, the teaching of Vladimir Bekhterev and his followers, and physiology of higher nervous activity, the teaching of Ivan Pavlov and his school, psychoanalysis and behaviorism. It became one of the major psychological approaches in the former USSR, being widely used in both theoretical and applied psychology, and in education, professional training, ergonomics, social psychology, and work psychology. Activity theory is more of a descriptive meta-theory or framework than a predictive theory. It considers an entire work/activity system, including teams, organizations, etc., beyond just one actor or user. It accounts for environment, history of the person, culture, role of the artifact, motivations, and complexity of real-life activity. One of the strengths of it is that it bridges the gap between the individual subject and the social reality it studies both through the mediating activity. The unit of analysis in it is the concept of object-oriented, collective, and culturally mediated human activity, or activity system. This system includes the object, or objective, subject, mediating artifacts, signs and tools, rules, community, and division of labor. The motive for the activity in it is created through the tensions and contradictions within the elements of the system. According to ethnographer Bonnie Nardi, a leading theorist in it, activity theory focuses on practice, which obviates the need to distinguish applied from pure science. Understanding everyday practice in the real world is the very objective of scientific practice. The object of activity theory is to understand the unity of consciousness and activity. Sometimes called cultural historical activity theory, this approach is particularly useful for studying a group that exists largely in virtual form, its communications mediated largely through electronic and printed texts. It is particularly useful as a lens in qualitative research methodologies, e.g., ethnography, case study. It provides a method of understanding and analyzing a phenomenon, finding patterns, and making inferences across interactions, describing phenomena and presenting phenomena through a built-in language and rhetoric. A particular activity is a goal-directed or purposeful interaction of a subject with an object through the use of tools. These tools are exteriorized forms of mental processes manifested in constructs, whether physical or psychological. It recognizes the internalization and externalization of cognitive processes involved in the use of tools, as well as the transformation or development that results from the interaction. History. The origins of activity theory can be traced to several sources, which have subsequently given rise to various complementary and intertwined strands of development. This account will focus on three of the most important of these strands. The first is associated with the Moscow Institute of Psychology and in particular the troika of young Russian researchers, Vygotsky, Leontev and Luria. Vygotsky founded cultural historical psychology, a field that became the basis for modern ET. Leontev, one of the principal founders of activity theory, both developed and reacted against Vygotsky's work. Leontev's formulation of general activity theory is currently the most influential in post-Soviet developments in it, which have largely been in social scientific, organizational, and writing studies rather than psychological research. The second major line of development within activity theory involves Russian scientists, such as P.K. Anokhin and N.A. Bernstein, more directly concerned with the neurophysiological basis of activity. Its foundation is associated with the Soviet philosopher of psychology S.L. Rubinstein. This work was subsequently developed by researchers such as Pushkin, Zinchenko and Gurdjieff, Ponomarenko, Zarakovsky, and others, and is currently most well known through the work on systemic structural activity theory being carried out by G. Z. Bedney and his associates. Finally, in the Western world, discussions and use of it are primarily framed within the Scandinavian activity theory strand, developed by Jirjo and Gestrom. Russian. After Vygotsky's early death, Leontev became the leader of the research group nowadays known as the Kharkov School of Psychology and extended Vygotsky's research framework in significantly new ways. Leontev first examined the psychology of animals, looking at the different degrees to which animals can be said to have mental processes. He concluded that Pavlov's reflectionism was not a sufficient explanation of animal behavior and that animals have an active relation to reality, which he called activity. In particular, the behavior of higher primates such as chimpanzees could only be explained by the ape's formation of multi-phase plans using tools. Leontev then progressed to humans and pointed out that people engage in actions that do not in themselves satisfy a need, but contribute towards the eventual satisfaction of a need. Often, these actions only make sense in a social context of a shared work activity. This led him to a distinction between activities, which satisfy a need, and the actions that constitute the activities. Leontev also argued that the activity in which a person is involved is reflected in their mental activity, that is, as he puts it, material reality is presented to consciousness, but only in its vital meaning or significance. Activity theory also influenced the development of activity games as developed by Georgy Shchedrovitsky. Scandinavian. It remained virtually unknown outside the Soviet Union until the mid-1980s, when it was picked up by Scandinavian researchers. The first international conference on activity theory was not held until 1986. The earliest non-Soviet paper cited by Nardi is a 1987 paper by Jirjo and Gestrom, Learning by Expanding. This resulted in a reformulation of it. Kuutai notes that the term activity theory can be used in two senses, referring to the original Soviet tradition or referring to the international, multi-voiced community applying the original ideas and developing them further. The Scandinavian school of thought seeks to integrate and develop concepts from Vygotsky's cultural historical psychology and Leontev's activity theory with Western intellectual developments such as cognitive science, American pragmatism, constructivism, and actor network theory. It is known as Scandinavian activity theory. Work in the system structural theory of activity is also being carried on by researchers in the US and UK. Some of the changes are a systematization of Leontev's work. Although Leontev's exposition is clear and well structured, it is not as well structured as the formulation by Jirjo and Gestrom. Kaptlainen remarks that Gestrom proposed a scheme of activity different from that by Leontev. It contains three interacting entities: the individual, the object and the community instead of the two components, the individual and the object, in Leontev's original scheme. Some changes were introduced, apparently by importing notions from human-computer interaction theory. For instance, the notion of rules, which is not found in Leontev, was introduced. Also, the notion of collective subject was introduced in the 1970s and 1980s. Leontev refers to joint labor activity, but only has individuals, not groups, as activity subjects. Theory. The goal of activity theory is understanding the mental capabilities of a single individual. However, it rejects the isolated individuals as insufficient unit of analysis, analyzing the cultural and technical aspects of human actions. Activity theory is most often used to describe actions in a socio-technical system through 6 related elements, Bryant et al. As defined by Leontiev 1981 and redefined in Gestrom 1987, of a conceptual system expanded by more nuanced theories. Object-orientedness, the objective of the activity system. Object refers to the objectiveness of the reality. Items are considered objective according to natural sciences but also have social and cultural properties. Subject or internalization actors engaged in the activities, the traditional notion of mental processes. Community or externalization social context, all actors involved in the activity system. Tools or tool mediation the artifacts, or concepts, used by actors in the system. Tools influence actor structure interactions, they change with accumulating experience. In addition to physical shape, the knowledge also evolves. Tools are influenced by culture, and their use is a way for the accumulation and transmission of social knowledge. Tools influence both the agents and the structure. Division of labor social strata, hierarchical structure of activity, the division of activities among actors in the system. Rules, conventions, guidelines, and rules regulating activities in the system. Activity theory helps explain how social artifacts and social organization mediate social action. Bryant et al. Information systems. The application of activity theory to information systems derives from the work of Bonnie Nardi and Kerry Kyutai. Kyutai's work is addressed below. Nardi's approach is, briefly, as follows. Nardi, p. 6, described activity theory as a powerful and clarifying descriptive tool rather than a strongly predictive theory. The object of activity theory is to understand the unity of consciousness and activity. Activity theorists argue that consciousness is not a set of discrete disembodied cognitive acts, decision-making, classification, remembering, and certainly it is not the brain. Rather, consciousness is located in everyday practice. You are what you do. Nardi, p. 5, also argued that activity theory proposes a strong notion of mediation. All human experience is shaped by the tools and sign systems we use. Nardi, p. 6, explained that a basic tenet of activity theory is that a notion of consciousness is central to a depiction of activity. Vygotsky described consciousness as a phenomenon that unifies attention, intention, memory, reasoning, and speech. And, p. 7, activity theory, with its emphasis on the importance of motive and consciousness which belongs only to humans, sees people and things as fundamentally different. People are not reduced to nodes or agents in a system. Information processing is not seen as something to be modeled in the same way for people and machines. In a later work, Nardi et al. In comparing activity theory with cognitive science, argue that activity theory is above all a social theory of consciousness, and therefore, activity theory wants to define consciousness, that is, all the mental functioning including remembering, deciding, classifying, generalizing, abstracting and so forth, as a product of our social interactions with other people and of our use of tools. For activity theorists, consciousness seems to refer to any mental functioning, whereas most other approaches to psychology distinguish conscious from unconscious functions. Over the last 15 years, the use and exploration of activity theory in information systems has grown. One stream of research has focused on technology-mediated change and the implementation of technologies and how they disrupt, change and improve organizational work activity. In these studies, activity systems are used to understand emergent contradictions in the work activity, which are temporarily resolved using information systems, tools, and/or arising from the introduction of information systems. Information science studies use a similar approach to activity theory in order to understand information behavior in context. In the field of ICT and development, a field of study within information systems, the use of activity theory has also been used to inform development of IT systems and to frame the study of ICT in development settings. In addition, Itengoff and Dahoud have conducted recent work exploring how social media interfaces can be productively used to mediate conflicts. Their work has illustrated this perspective with analyses of online interactions between gay men and their religious family members and Sunni Muslim emerging adults' efforts to maintain a positive ethnic identity via online religious forums in post-9/11 contexts. Human-computer interaction. The rise of the personal computer challenged the focus in traditional systems developments on mainframe systems for automation of existing work routines. It furthermore brought forth a need to focus on how to work on materials and objects through the computer. In the search of theoretical and methodical perspectives suited to deal with issues of flexibility and more advanced mediation between the human being, material, and outcomes through the interface, it seemed promising to turn to the still rather young HCI research tradition that had emerged primarily in the US. For further discussion, see Bannon and Tucker, 1991. Specifically, the cognitive science-based theories lacked means of addressing a number of issues that came out of the empirical projects. See Bannon and Tucker, 1991-1. Many of the early advanced user interfaces assumed that the users were the designers themselves, and accordingly built on an assumption of a generic user, without concern for qualifications, work environment, division of work, etc. In particular, the role of the artifact as it stands between the user and her materials, objects, and outcomes was ill understood. 3. In validating findings and designs, there was a heavy focus on novice users, whereas everyday use by experienced users and concerns for the development of expertise were hardly addressed. 4. Detailed task analysis and the idealized models created through task analysis failed to capture the complexity and contingency of real-life action. 5. From the point of view of complex work settings, it was striking how most HCI focused on one user, one computer, in contrast to the ever-ongoing cooperation and coordination of real work situations. This problem later led to the development of CSCW. 6. Users were mainly seen as objects of study. Because of these shortcomings, it was necessary to move outside cognitive science-based HCI to find or develop the necessary theoretical platform. European psychology had taken different paths than had American, with much inspiration from dialectical materialism, Haydn 1981, Engstrom, 1987. Philosophers such as Heidegger and Wittgenstein came to play an important role, primarily through discussions of the limitations of AI, Winograd and Flores 1986, Dreyfus and Dreyfus 1986. Suchman, 1987, with a similar focus, introduced ethnomethodology into the discussions, and N. 1988, based his treatise of design of computer artifacts on Marx, Heidegger, and Wittgenstein. The development of the activity theoretical angle was primarily carried out by Tucker, 1991, 1996, and by Kyutai, Bannon and Kyutai, 1993, Kyutai, 1991, 1996, both with strong inspiration from Scandinavian activity theory groups in psychology. Bannon, 1990, 1991, and Grudin, 1990A and B, made significant contributions to the furthering of the approach by making it available to the HCI audience. The work of Kaplainen, 1996, has been important to connect to the earlier development of activity theory in Russia. Nardi produced the, hitherto, most applicable collection of activity theoretical HCI literature, Nardi, 1996. Systemic Structural Activity Theory, SSAT. At the end of the 1990s, a group of Russian and American activity theorists working in the systems cybernetic tradition of Bernstein and Anokhin began to publish English-language articles and books dealing with topics in human factors and ergonomics and, latterly, human-computer interaction. Under the rubric of Systemic Structural Activity Theory, SSAT, this work represents a modern synthesis within activity theory which brings together the cultural, historical and systems structural strands of the tradition, as well as other work within Soviet psychology such as the psychology of set, with findings and methods from Western human factors/ergonomics and cognitive psychology. The development of SSAT has been specifically oriented toward the analysis and design of the basic elements of human work activity, tasks, tools, methods, objects, and results, and the skills, experience, and abilities of involved subjects. SSAT has developed techniques for both the qualitative and quantitative description of work activity. Its design-oriented analyses specifically focus on the interrelationship between the structure and self-regulation of work activity and the configuration of its material components. An explanation. This section presents a short introduction to activity theory, and some brief comments on human creativity in activity theory and the implications of activity theory for tacit knowledge and learning. Activities. Activity theory begins with the notion of activity. An activity is seen as a system of human doing whereby a subject works on an object in order to obtain a desired outcome. In order to do this, the subject employs tools, which may be external, e.g. an axe, a computer, or internal, e.g. a plan. As an illustration, an activity might be the operation of an automated call center. As we shall see later, many subjects may be involved in the activity and each subject may have one or more motives, e.g. improved supply management, career advancement, or gaining control over a vital organizational power source. A simple example of an activity within a call center might be a telephone operator, subject, who is modifying a customer's billing record, object, so that the billing data is correct, outcome, using a graphical front-end to a database, tool. Kyutai formulates activity theory in terms of the structure of an activity. An activity is a form of doing directed to an object, and activities are distinguished from each other according to their objects. Transforming the object into an outcome motivates the existence of an activity. An object can be a material thing, but it can also be less tangible. Kyutai then adds a third term, the tool, which mediates between the activity and the object. The tool is at the same time both enabling and limiting. It empowers the subject in the transformation process with the historically collected experience and skill crystallized to it, but it also restricts the interaction to be from the perspective of that particular tool or instrument. Other potential features of an object remain invisible to the subject. As Varenikina remarks, tools are social objects with certain modes of operation developed socially in the course of labor and are only possible because they correspond to the objectives of a practical action. Levels. An activity is modeled as a three-level hierarchy. Kyutai schematizes processes in activity theory as a three-level system. Varenikina paraphrases Leontev as explaining that the non-coincidence of action and operations appears in actions with tools, that is, material objects which are crystallized operations, not actions, nor goals. If a person is confronted with a specific goal of, say, dismantling a machine, then they must make use of a variety of operations. It makes no difference how the individual operations were learned because the formulation of the operation proceeds differently to the formulation of the goal that initiated the action. The levels of activity are also characterized by their purposes. Activities are oriented to motives, that is, the objects that are impelling by themselves. Each motive is an object, material, or ideal, that satisfies a need. Actions are the processes functionally subordinated to activities, they are directed at specific conscious goals. Actions are realized through operations that are determined by the actual conditions of activity. Ingestrom developed an extended model of an activity, which adds another component, community, those who share the same object, and then adds rules to mediate between subject and community, and the division of labor to mediate between object and community. Kyutai asserts that these three classes should be understood broadly. A tool can be anything used in the transformation process, including both material tools and tools for thinking. Rules cover both explicit and implicit norms, conventions, and social relations within a community. Division of labor refers to the explicit and implicit organization of the community as related to the transformation process of the object into the outcome. Activity theory therefore includes the notion that an activity is carried out within a social context, or specifically in a community. The way in which the activity fits into the context is thus established by two resulting concepts. Rules. These are both explicit and implicit and define how subjects must fit into the community. Division of labor. This describes how the object of the activity relates to the community. The internal plane of action. Activity theory provides a number of useful concepts that can be used to address the lack of expression for soft factors which are inadequately represented by most process modeling frameworks. One such concept is the internal plane of action. Activity theory recognizes that each activity takes place in two planes, the external plane and the internal plane. The external plane represents the objective components of the action while the internal plane represents the subjective components of the action. Kaplan defines the internal plane of actions as a concept developed in activity theory that refers to the human ability to perform manipulations with an internal representation of external objects before starting actions with these objects in reality. The concepts of motives, goals, and conditions discussed above also contribute to the modeling of soft factors. One principle of activity theory is that many activities have multiple motivation, polymotivation. For instance, a programmer in writing a program may address goals aligned towards multiple motives such as increasing his or her annual bonus, obtaining relevant career experience and contributing to organizational objectives. Activity theory further argues that subjects are grouped into communities, with rules mediating between subject and community and a division of labor mediating between object and community. A subject may be part of several communities and a community, itself, may be part of other communities. Human creativity. Human creativity plays an important role in activity theory, that human beings are essentially creative beings in the creative, non-predictable character. Tikhomarov also analyzes the importance of creative activity, contrasting it to routine activity, and notes the important shift brought about by computerization in the balance towards creative activity. Learning and tacit knowledge. Activity theory has an interesting approach to the difficult problems of learning and, in particular, tacit knowledge. Learning has been a favorite subject of management theorists, but it has often been presented in an abstract way separated from the work processes to which the learning should apply. Activity theory provides a potential corrective to this tendency. For instance, Engestrom's review of Nonaka's work on knowledge creation suggests enhancements based on activity theory, in particular suggesting that the organizational learning process includes preliminary stages of goal and problem formation not found in Nonaka. Lomsker, rather than seeing learning as transmission, sees the formation of learning goals and the student's understanding of which things they need to acquire as the key to the formation of the learning activity. Of particular importance to the study of learning in organizations is the problem of tacit knowledge, which according to Nonaka, is highly personal and hard to formalize, making it difficult to communicate to others or to share with others. Leontev's concept of operation provides an important insight into this problem. In addition, the key idea of internalization was originally introduced by Vygotsky as the internal reconstruction of an external operation. Internalization has subsequently become a key term of the theory of tacit knowledge and has been defined as a process of embodying explicit knowledge into tacit knowledge. Internalization has been described by Engstrom as the key psychological mechanism discovered by Vygotsky and is further discussed by Varenikina.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.